Venezuela has encountered a financial crisis which may be considered one of the worst in the world right now. Hyperinflation is destroying everyone. With the price of oil subdued, Venezuela's main source of revenue is lacking. There have been some serious measures in trying to reverse this, but in the end, it's really far too late. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we are going to look at Venezuela, we're going to look at oil, and so much more. Let's begin. Maduro announces the creation of Petro, the cryptocurrency of Venezuela. Yes, that's right. Maduro has decided this would be the saving grace. The president of Venezuela today announced the creation of Petro, a Venezuelan cryptocurrency, to advance in the matter of monetary sovereignty, to make financial transactions, and to overcome the financial blockade. So what we have here is the US imposing sanctions on Venezuela and ramping them up. So it's becoming more and more difficult to do business, and as a result, they've been pushed up into the corner against the wall, and this is what their response is. I don't think that this is going to solve anything. I'll get into that more in a moment. Venezuela announces the creation of a cryptocurrency. This will allow us to move towards new forms of international financing for the economic and social development of the country. All right. And last but not least, the president explained that his government will make a cryptocurrency issue backed by reserves of Venezuelan gold, oil, gas, and diamond wealth. So the issues I have with this is that, first of all we have is an announcement here trying to maybe stabilize somewhat the markets. Not going to happen. And they say that's going to be backed by these commodities. While that sounds good, they have no idea how this can ever be done. Internationally, will it be valid at all? Will it be used just internally within the country, or is this supposed to be some sort of international means of financial transaction? Other countries probably wouldn't have any faith in it. They would probably want dollars or euros or some other currency that is known to them at this time. I don't think that Venezuela necessarily has the trust of all of these other countries, considering the fact that it continues to default on its debt. So this is a big mistake, I think, and to put a lot of energy and time into this, I think there are more pressing issues to be dealing with at this time. A cryptocurrency is not the savior for what's happening in Venezuela right now. I don't think that's the, maybe if things were good and you wanted to discuss it, look around the world, all central banks seem to be discussing at one level or another, introducing a cryptocurrency or simply talking about it, the benefits and the pros and the cons. But to use this as an attempt to get around the financial mechanisms that are in place today, I just don't see how that's possible. There are many other things that you can do. And so this is one of those steps I think is very risky on their part, but it's something that potentially they see that has to be done. Venezuela's latest currency decision shows desperation. This week, Venezuela announced that it will no longer accept payments in US dollar for its oil, a major divergence from typical oil market practices. Currently, you have the reserve currency of the world, that is the US dollar. All commodities must be priced in oil. So, for example, if the Philippines wants to buy some oil from the US, it has to first buy US currency, take it, and give that, and they do an exchange in that way. So the US has that reserve currency status. It benefits regardless if it's part of the trade or not. Some countries, China, Russia, and others, in this case here Venezuela, believe that we don't want to give the US that hegemony any longer. The reason why it was put into place was because it was a very stable currency, it was sound, and you knew that holding on to that currency would be beneficial to you. But things have changed with all the sanctions. Venezuela wants to do without. And so this is obviously a major uphill battle that they're trying to fight. But at this point, there's not much they can do. I would just stress to everyone to look back in the pages of history, just a few years ago, in fact, where you look at Libya. Everybody knows the story by now, but Gaddafi said, hey, I've got a great idea. We can do something where we can get away from the financial monopoly that the US has, and we'll issue our own currency. And so we'll get started on this. It will be, of course, backed by gold. It's going to be an African currency. Will unite us together, and we'll take it from there. We don't want to have to deal with US dollars anymore. And then he was taken out of business, right? And then a few years prior, you had Saddam Hussein, where he was removed from his position, let's say. That's been a few years now anyway. And what he did, I'm sure, again, everybody knows the story. He decides to say, well, I don't really like what the US is doing, although, just a few months ago, they were my friends and then they turned on me. They decided that this would be a better idea to price it in euros. 1 month later, he was, let's call it, taken off his post. 1 month later. I believe that was the time frame anyway. I showed it here on the channel before. All the dates are getting mixed up in my head, but you see where I'm going with that. And the same thing will happen to Maduro. It's just a matter of time. Venezuela publishes oil prices in yuan for the first time. This is huge. To go ahead and make that step forward, he's really barking up the wrong tree, I can tell you that. This does not go well for, the powers that be. They do not like anybody challenging their system. The petrodollar must remain the petrodollar. In a move that is largely seen as Maduro giving Washington the middle finger, Venezuela has made good on its promises to lay off the US dollar, publishing its oil in yuan. Look at this. This is it here. Directly from their own website, Venezuelan website here, translated. And you'll see priced in yuan. So it's a big step, I believe, and it ultimately will have to lead in one form or another of removal. Maybe it'll do something that happened with Libya or with Iraq, or maybe something new altogether. We'll see. This is just an interesting little graphic I found, where you're looking at the billions of barrels of oil. Supposedly, reserves of Venezuela are massive, massive. And it shows us what they have that the US and that all of these corporations want. They want that oil. And they'll do anything. They're using their financial weapons. They're using all of their dealings, everything they can do, whether it's the IMF, whether it's other countries, they can push them towards that. They're imposing sanctions. They're doing everything. Why? It's for this 300 billion barrels of oil, even surpassing, supposedly, Saudi Arabia. And then we look at the currency itself. So as soon as Maduro got in, things got from bad to worse. But that's even before this chart begins. Ever since then, I mean, you did have the crude oil coming down, which was really what broke their back entirely. just look at it. Once the barrel sort of got to what looks like around $60 or so, and even lower, the currency just was absolutely destroyed compared to the US dollar. It's worth nothing today, essentially. You know, you can buy things in Venezuela if you have their currency. Just make sure you bring your wheelbarrow. My thoughts on this are that we will unfortunately encounter a much higher rate of inflation as time goes on in Venezuela. There will be the potential of regime change here at this time. I don't see how they're going to last. I just don't. I'm surprised actually it's lasted this long. So we'll see. And I think that's all for this video. I'll end it there. Just keep your eye on Venezuela. A lot of people don't like to really look at it because they believe it's a small economy and they think that it doesn't have any really relevance to wherever they are. Maybe they're in the US or the UK or what have you. But I think it's important to keep an eye on it, if not for any other reason, to see if the West will do the same pattern, follow that same pattern that they did with these previous two countries. And it seems to me that they'll pull out all the stops. They'll do anything. And it's worrisome because there's a lot of innocent people there that are going to be hurt by this. I mean, already they've been hurt by this hyperinflation. How much worse can it get for these people? Okay, that's all for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my books, The Money GPS, and my newer release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. You could actually flip through these books. If you go over to Amazon, they have a look inside feature. It's going to allow you to flip through the pages of these books to see if you like them. Take care.